Photography began in the early 19th century as a revolutionary art, a way to document the world in its true form. Like many fields, men dominated photography at its inception, relegating women to subjects rather than creators. Today, women photographers are reclaiming their place behind the lens. At Chennai's Lalit Kala Academy, as part of the fourth edition of the Chennai Photo Biennale, a room full of photographs shows the world through the female gaze. This exhibit, titled It's Time to See, to be Seen, celebrates women as both subjects and makers of images. This collage of photos by Fast Forward, a UK collective dedicated to women in photography, spans an expansive wall at the gallery entrance.
I'm here to be part of this amazing exhibition, which is really looking at how women work in photography and how we see. And so I run a project called Fast Forward, Women in Photography. It's been going for 11 years now. I started it with my colleague, another photographer, Karen Knorr. And together we've done a series of projects across the globe with conferences, journals, exhibitions, research workshops, publications.
While Fast Forward helps women transcend victimhood and explore the world, Indian photographer Radha Rati examines her country's cultural paradox, the worship of goddesses despite a patriarchal society that perpetuates misogyny and restricts women's autonomy.
I think the direct question that I did have when I was exploring this idea or this exhibit itself, that it's very interesting that men are the ones who make them. Like these goddesses are sculpted by men, right? And then they are maintained by men because all the priests are men, right? There are no female priests. So I really question that how is it that that is existing for a goddess? You know, in the society, we can't ignore the fact that there is maybe there is a fantasy or a male fantasy present there because if you see any of these amens, they're all decorated by men, right? They are bathed, gotten ready. So there is that type of an engagement which is beyond a society structure.
When we began thinking about this edition, which is a big inspiration from Dayanita Singh's prompt, Why Photograph, it felt like a very necessary question. And beyond the why photograph, it is also who is photographing. And in the who came about this big question of who is it that is top of mind on many people's lists in terms of photographers. There is a very nice corner where we have Noni Singh, who's one of the early archivists of India, a woman who's documented her family and at that time of the partition and beyond. And I'm actually searching for more women from Tamil Nadu and elsewhere to see, did they document back then? Do they have their own family archives? The photographs that they made, not the husbands, not the other men in the family. And it's been hard to find that. So when I bring like a Noni Singh into the show, it's a huge thing.
Rather than categorizing women artists as a genre, the show serves as an archive. It documents women's responses to the world through inspiring dialogue, intersectional ideas, their histories, and realities.
It seems that this idea of networking, it has been more difficult for women. All these things are generalizations, of course, it's not all women, but keeping in the network and building the network has been very, very difficult. So Fast Forward has worked actually as a networking platform.
The It's Time exhibit also encourages women to share their work, building confidence and affirming that their creations deserve celebration.
In Switzerland, we have a lot of big competitions and grants, and every time I'm invited to be in a jury, everybody in the juries is men, all the people that are selected are men. And on one hand, I think that's why these kind of events are really important, because at least we're making the effort to shift the attention. But also, I think it's really a matter of education, and still people still, I think women still have to be more encouraged or feel that their work is good enough that they can submit it.
Anshika Varma's Offset Projects publishes photo books, shining the light on less known photographers. Their display at the exhibit, A Shared Room, features works about inheritance, history, rebellion, and memory negotiation.
We have artists who are from Pakistan, from Nepal, and from India in the book. Over here in the exhibition iteration of the work, we're looking at works by Uma Bista, who's from Nepal, who's also looking at practices of patriarchy and jeopardy, where women who, when they're going through their menstrual cycles, they're not allowed to enter the homes. And Uma's kind of negotiating that by creating images that reflect on her own experiences of her first experience, when she had to be separated from the house and what that felt like.
Pratika Menon's Doon photographs 4 women living in Moira, in Goa. The collection examines how place, memory, and tradition shape identity and belonging.
Eugene's a farmer. Her daughters work now in a more modern environment. And also, how does this fit into the modern structures of life right now? Because so far, I think, before the pandemic, Goa was still very much a sleepy old space. And now suddenly there's so much change happening. And how do you record these things before they disappear? That's something that I've been looking at as well. So it's a documentation, but it's also like a bit of a story of love and hope and preserving things a certain way, or rather remembering things a certain way.
For women, places hold not just stories of resilience, loss, and identity, but also personal and collective histories. In Palestine, Israeli occupation and settlement expansion sever millions from their ancestral lands. Photographer Samar Hasbun explores Palestinians' deep-rooted connection to their land, embedded in centuries of history, culture, and sustenance, through olive trees, terraced hills, and ancestral villages. The India-Pakistan partition similarly displaced millions, stripping them of land and identity amid violence.
This particular work is accompanied by a film, and it looks at the family archives of Charandas Bangia, who came into India as a refugee, and um, Priyanka actually came across this archive in a very interesting way. She was working on a film that was looking at the agency of women in during the time of partition, and it was primarily looking at conversations with her own grandmother and their friends during this time, and they came across Charandas Bangia's archive through that. The book is a very interesting kind of mix. It's almost like a little bit of a film in itself, but in on printed paper. She's woven all of them to to assimilate a history together of not just Charandas Bangia, but of the entire timeline of movement, of migration, of looking at how people think about land and belonging.
In India, Dalit women lack land rights and toil in fields they cannot own. Photographer Bhumika Saraswati began Unequal Heat 3 years ago to document how rising temperatures disproportionately affect marginalized communities, particularly Dalit women who work in fields without respite.
Isn't just a climate story. This is also a story of rage, of survival, And when I say rage and survival, it's a heat and rage of 3,000 years of oppression within a caste society that is ours, within a patriarchal society that is ours. So the idea of heat has extended from just being increasing temperatures and has also tried to capture the generational oppression, generational rage of women, and resistance and survival.
Though based in New Delhi, Saraswati traveled across northern and central India to document these women's stories. Women photographers face distinct challenges: safety concerns, cultural restrictions, and gender-based discrimination. While female subjects trust them readily, male land and farm owners often obstruct their access to resources and spaces. German photographer Kiki Scheidberger's exhibit, pairs her journey to rural farms with her subjects' migrations from Eastern Europe to German fields. These seasonal workers live in isolation, sleeping in shared containers behind flight deterrent curtains. Scheidberger reveals the people behind both the curtains and their food.
Certainly with other women, you certainly have a sisterhood of some sort and you work together and you have something in common. And it depends where you are, because in some countries it's also easier to be a woman because men are not let in. So, but for this particular project, for some farmers, that's where it was actually interesting. On one farm, I was kicked out straight away. It wasn't a very good farm. But for most situations, you're less of a threat. So you can go in, you're there, things are easy.
The exhibit concludes by merging African mythology with AI technology. Delphine Diallo transforms Black women into goddesses through body paint, jewelry, and distinctive attire.
First, when AI arrived, especially in the art space, people were very negative. So I love to actually balance when something is very unbalanced. My feeling it's not reality. Like suddenly something very negative can take over the meaning of a tool, because AI is a tool before being anything else, right? Let's be real. 80 to 85% of the photography world is male. The more than the male photographer is the male gaze, and people need to start to talk about male gaze and female gaze. I said yes from the get-go when when Shushi asked me, the curator, to come to do the show, is because she actually told me who was a part of it, and I never saw a biennale who does it. So this is where change started, when all women together can bring a different understanding of perception, not only my perception, right? The idea is like the collective of new perception, where female gaze can finally be seen, and people questioning perception. Then this is where the work started.
Running until March 16, the It's Time exhibit invites viewers into women's lives, struggles, and triumphs across the globe. These artists do more than document the world. They reshape it, challenging established realities. Their work celebrates resilience and reminds us that every image can change how we see and understand one another.